If you're about to paint some MDF, then this is for you, as I'm going to show you how, with just a mini roller and a 1-inch brush, you can achieve a fantastic finish, almost as good as a spray finish. Welcome to Real DIY. I've been spending the last few days making a piece of furniture for my granddaughter's bedroom. It's a combination of a wardrobe and a cupboard. It's made of MDF and I painted it white. So I thought today I'd share with you how I go about painting MDF, in particular paying attention to the edges. I'm just going to be using a mini roller and a 1-inch paintbrush, and I think I can get a finish that's almost as good as with a spray gun. So this is the door I've got to paint. This is the inside of it, so I'm actually going to start with the outside first. I think I'm going to do this face and then do all the 4 edges as well, and once that's dried I can flip it over and I'll do the inside. I've already rubbed down all the edges here because they can be a little bit on the furry side, so they're now ready for painting. I'm going to be using a little mini roller with a very short pile. You can get longer pile little rollers, but they're better suited for emulsion paint. This will be just fine for my acrylic primer undercoat. A 1-inch paintbrush is ideal. You don't need anything bigger than that. And of course you're going to need a paint tray. This one, as you can see, has had plenty of use. The cup of tea is also pretty much standard when you're painting anything. Let's not forget the paint. I'm going to be using this acrylic primer undercoat. When I paint this, I'm going to paint it in 6 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll do the edges as I go along. So load up the roller. Doesn't need too much paint. Now I tend to roll diagonally, as you can see. And I guess I've always done that because normally I'm painting softwood and it really helps to get the paint into the grain if you can paint it diagonally like that. Now I just finish off in one direction, just very, very lightly. So I go diagonally and then I'll go from side to side. So now we'll do the edges. A little bit of paint on the brush, not too much paint. And again, I tend to go diagonally. You need to go along with the roller at the same time. Run the roller on the underside. That will catch any drips. When you think you've got a decent coat on, just run the roller very, very, very gently down that edge. That's looking pretty good for the first coat. Right, well that's done, so I'm going to leave that now, let that dry. Now I've got a tip for you. There's no point washing this roller out because we're going to be using it again. So what you can do is wrap it in cling film. Pop the roller in it and wrap it up. Squeeze the air out, keeping the plastic tight to the roller, and that will keep for several days. This first coat is now dry, and I must say it's looking very promising indeed. It'll need a very light sand, and also the edges will as well because they're a little bit on the furry side. Just use the roller really, really gently and you won't lift the paint off. But don't be tempted to go back over an area that you did a few minutes ago because the paint will always be drying. Now I painted this edge a little bit earlier when the camera was off, so I can turn this around now and do the other edges. This doesn't need too much paint on here because it's already had a first coat. Just going to take the brush, which is pretty dry, along that bottom edge and then run the roller across the top. This has now had 2 coats of primer undercoat on both sides and of course on the edges. They're very, very smooth to the touch. You don't feel that roughness that you could feel when the board is first cut. Now a little tip whenever you're painting, particularly rolling, is to work with a light source on the far side of you. Now I've got a couple of lights in here for videoing, but more importantly I've got daylight over there. I've got 3 windows. the light will bounce off this wet surface, and it's very easy to see where I've been and where I haven't been, and also if there are any little tram lines left which are created by the edge of the roller. So always work, if you can, with a light on the far side of you. It's much easier to see what you're doing. And certainly if you're painting a wall or a ceiling, you really want to start nearest the light source. So if you're painting a wall, start up against the window and then work away from it. That way you've always got the light reflecting off it. And you'll see me I look like I'm ducking and diving here, but I'm looking at the reflections coming off here. And that way I can see if I've missed anything or if there are any tram lines. And it's funny because if I look this way, it looks quite different, although actually I do have a roof light up there, so that is giving me some light. So it's not entirely silly to be looking in this direction. If you have to lift a little speck off on the surface and then you need to touch it up, just use the end of the roller, because the end has invariably got a lot more paint on it than the actual roller surface. So just tap and that paint will come off. It's much easier than trying to put more paint on here because you're likely to leave tram lines. So just remember, there's always a bit more paint on the end here, and you might as well make use of it. Tap it on the surface, you'll see the paint come off, and then you just need a couple of little rolls and you're done. So let's get on, give this a sand and crack on with the first coat of satin finish. This has now had 2 top coats and it's looking extremely good. It's a beautifully smooth finish, and here it is all done with its satin finish top coat. If you'd like to see how I made it, there'll be a link coming up on screen, and there'll also be a link in the description down below. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.